Welcome to hypothesis testing. We are now on to part 6 in the Dr. T's Research Methods Basics videos. So in this video, we are going to think about testing some common claims that we see in criminology, criminal justice. Maybe we're interested in better understanding why there are differences between male and female rates of juvenile delinquency. And we think that this may have something to do with the differences in adolescent male and female online behavior. Well, we can't reasonably talk to all people under the age of responsibility who use the internet. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take a sample. So let's say we're interested in adolescent delinquency. And we have this huge population of people under age of responsibility. Here in the United States, it's 18. So our population is adolescent. Under age 18. And we're going to go ahead and grab a sample, just random folks who meet our age requirement. And once we've taken this sample, we are going to go ahead and split the sample into two groups. Why? Because what I'm interested in is the differences in behavior online between the male folks in our sample and the female folks in our sample. Okay. Now I go ahead and I calculate some of our sample statistics, right? And I'm thinking, one of the things that may matter when we talk about juvenile delinquency is how much time young males versus young females spend online. And I find that on average, the mean amount of time in the male sample is about 35 minutes. And the standard deviation is about 11 minutes. And, kind of the important one here, another important one, our sample has 100 males. And I think I'll put a 1 on all of these so we know that this is our male group. And our female group, on average, is 31 minutes online. The standard deviation, I'm going to call that S2, is 12 minutes. And I have 125 females in my sample. So in a way, I kind of have two samples out of my one sample. I have a sample of young men and I have a sample of young women. So I have kind of these two samples going on. A sample of young men, a sample of young women. I want to know if the maybe delinquency has to do with differences in their online behavior. The first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to determine what is my null hypothesis. Well, really, if I've taken a random sample and I know that, well, in 1 and in 2, between the two of those, I definitely have more than enough folks to put this under a normal distribution. Well, really my null hypothesis is that the population average amount of time spent online, there is no difference between the population average for the young male participants in my sample and the young female participants in my sample, right? Basically saying no difference at all. In the alternative hypothesis then, what I'm going to say is, yeah, there's a difference, right? So there would be my alternative hypothesis. The next thing I need to figure out is what kind of test I'm doing, right? Now, I know I'm kind of going to compare the amount of time spent online between these two samples from my sample. So I know this is, a two sample test, because really what I have here is a sample of young males and young females. I know that my sample sizes for each one are greater than 30. So it's a fairly large sample. And I also know that there's an equality here, even though it's an inequality in my alternative hypothesis. So that points to, and I'm also looking at average time, right? So that points to, I'm looking at a mean. My sample is greater than 30. And I have this equality in the alternative hypothesis. So I am going to do a z-test. Now, if you're wondering where on earth I got that, you need to go back and watch a few of the previous videos. Now, at least for me, it's important for me to go ahead and kind of graph out what I'm doing here. I have a normal distribution, and I'm letting the sample mean equal the population mean, and we know that under a normal distribution the mean is 0. And so we're looking at minutes spent online. Okay, so we'll go ahead and make each standard deviation just be 1 minute, I guess. All right, I write too big for my own lines. Okay, all right. Now let's see, I need to know what is the difference in the average amount of time that the male sample spends online than the female sample. Well, it shouldn't be too hard to figure out, right? I'm just looking for a difference. So I'm looking for the difference between the male average, that was 35 minutes, and the female average, that is 31 minutes. So I have a difference of 4. Okay, if I put that on my graph, it's right there, and it looks like it's going to be pretty unlikely, pretty rare that I'm going to find any other samples that I just randomly pull where the difference is going to be 4 minutes. I can't quite talk about statistical significance yet, but I'd really like to. Now I know I'm going to do a z-test, and the formula for finding the standardized test statistic, because we need that if we're going to be working with z, is z equals x bar 1 minus x bar 2 minus mu 1 minus mu 2 divided by the standard deviation of x bar 1 minus x bar 2. Let's go ahead and plug in what we know, and then I'll kind of work you through something that I have a feeling is maybe freaking you out just a little bit. So we have z equals, and we know x bar 1 minus x bar 2 is 4, equals 4. And we know that because we're using a standard normal distribution, mu 1 minus mu 2, it's going to be 0. Now here's the part that I bet you're wondering about. Divided by sigma standard deviation x bar 1 minus x bar 2. Rather than run out of time in this little video clip, I'm going to go ahead and we will work on part 7, and we'll pick up where we're leaving off here.